What was it that tipped the needle for you there? That you went from, is it just the way things are, to all of a sudden, no, this this isn't going to work. I can't do this another day.
I was on the brink of losing the things that were most important to me, my marriage, my relationship with my kids, and I was burnt out. It was all under the guise, all under the lie that I told myself, which was it was all for them.
Until a leader is leading themselves well, no one else around them. Whether you want more innovation more easily, you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead in today's world. And joining me today is Chad Brown. Chad is a scaling strategist and coach. He founded a media production studio called Shade Tree Films in 2008 that has serviced global companies such as Volkswagen, Target, and Pixar animation studios. This is where his love and passion for leadership and business was developed. He sold that company in 2021. Over the last 7 years, he has trained and developed creative entrepreneurs who want to increase their profit and work less. When he is not helping others create more freedom in their business, you will find, or not be able to find, Chad on a wild adventure in the mountains for this family. He resides at the foot of the Rocky Mountains in Orem, Utah, with his wife, Katie, and 3 children, Addison, Kenya, and Milo. Welcome, Chad.
Thanks for having me, Michael. I'm excited for this conversation.
I'm glad you came in from the wilderness for it.
That's right.
When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self, bringing that into everything that you do, might be a valuable approach?
My journey, my story is one of failure. Every meaningful lesson I've learned is from some sort of failure, and certainly fell flat on my face in this aspect. When you ask the question, what it reminds me of is the time that you mentioned I started my film studio, Shade Tree Films. And when we started that studio, I say we because I had a 50-50 business partner when we kicked it off. When we started that studio, there was a beautiful magic and lucky moment that we were in where equipment was really accessible and large brands were starting to look at smaller creators to help them create content, which is really cool because up to that point it had all been big production, big bills, and it was really hard to get into. And then all of a sudden, with the advent of social media and the popularization of video, specifically on Facebook is one of the first ones to really start utilizing video advertising. We got this crazy opportunity to start working with brands that we only could dream of working with really quickly within about 2.5 years of starting our business. So it was like, what's the saying is that success is when luck meets preparation, something like that. And that's absolutely what happened to us. I think the luck was probably bigger than the preparation, but we were along for the ride. And in that moment, in that time rather, I allowed that business to completely take over my life. We quickly grew, as I mentioned. We started adding cinematographers and editors. We leased a big space and for our studio so that we could do in-house production. And there was a lot going on. And it was probably my 4th or 5th business starting, and it was the first one that was actually starting to see some success, quote unquote success. If people are listening to this, they can't see me. I'm doing the air quotes success because as we could get into that definition is pliable. But monetarily and in the market, we really started to see some success quickly. And I let it, like I mentioned earlier, I let it completely take over my life. And to the point where we were traveling over 300 days out of the year because we wouldn't turn down any contracts that came our way. And all of them were production on location. So we were traveling all over the world to produce these videos. Meanwhile, I have my wife and two daughters who were 1 and 4 at the time, were in a small apartment in Southern California. And essentially, my wife was a single mom. And I saw my kids rarely. I missed birthday parties, soccer games, momentous occasions, kindergarten graduations, you name it, I missed it. And it was all under the guise, all under the lie that I told myself, which was it was all for them. And that's a pretty relatable lie, I think, that people can recognize in themselves. I didn't know it at the time. I actually didn't know it until I hired a business coach myself to help me turn this around. But what I realize now, looking back on that moment of time, looking back at that period of time, is that I was unwilling to integrate my life as a whole into the work that I was doing. I separated the two. There was work, and then there was family and home. And what I made up was that home and family needed to be sacrificed for now to build something really big and really successful so that later on we could have time together as a family and at home. And the problem with that is that you never turn the corner. At least I didn't. There's always another thing to go after in business. There's always another level, another client, another contract. And we chased that for a good 3 years. And towards the end of that 3 years, I was on the brink of losing the things that were most important to me: my marriage, my relationship with my kids. And I was burnt out. I was exhausted. And all of this was contributing to my very, very poor leadership. We had high turnover in the studio. We couldn't keep good talent. And there were often blow-ups on set where, we even a couple of times, some of our best team members left in the middle of a production because they couldn't take the pressure and the expectations, and then not being recognized for the work that they were doing. It was a mess. And that moment is when I said, this isn't working. I'm not proud of the father that I've become. I'm not proud of the husband that I've become. I am not proud of the leader that I am of this business, and something has to change. And if it doesn't change quick, I'm going to walk away. It was to that point. And that reality sunk in, and I talked with my business partner, and he was on the same page. We both realized, man, something's got to change, but we didn't know how to change it. We didn't know another way. And so that's when we started exercising resources, talking to people that were in our network, and starting to figure out, how do we run this thing in a sustainable way that it can both be successful, make the difference in the market that we want to make, continue to do our art, and live life with our families the way that we want to live life with our families. And that was the moment that we decided to hire a business coach. And the business coach, I thought he would come in and he would help us build this system, or, structure our time, or, any of that sort of stuff. And that stuff did happen. That stuff was part of it. It was valuable, but it wasn't the most valuable part of it. Probably the most valuable moment in that experience was the second call we had with the coach. And I said something that I always say, which is, I'm a family man. Family is the most important thing to me. And he looked at me and he said, Chad, you're lying. You're lying to yourself. And until you stop lying to yourself, I can't help you. And I was offended at first. I was like, oh, hold on. Okay, I'm paying you. Let's slow down here. And then it struck me. And it was like, yeah, I am lying to myself, because he showed me that the reality that I had in life, in my business and with my family, was not consistent with what I was saying. And that's a lie. If it wasn't a lie, I would create what I say is most important to me. And then over the next 4 years, he really helped us formulate the business. He really helped us become the leaders that we were proud to be. Meanwhile, investing in our families the way that we wanted to invest in them. It was an incredible transformation. And that's the moment that I realized all of this is integrated. There's not containers. There's not separation. And when one isn't healthy, the other isn't healthy. And that's the moment. I mean, that when you ask your question, that is the time of my life that I think of, wow, that's when I discovered that.
That's so exactly what I hear all the time. It's one thing that we think we're doing for the good of all these other things, and it becomes the only thing. And all these other things that we tell ourselves we're doing this in service of, we forget about. They're left alone.
Yeah.
They're dropped on the floor. And we still have the phantom them that we're carrying around with us. So we don't allow ourselves to realize that the phantom, all of those things, is not exactly the same as the real, all of those things.
Yeah. And it's haunting, right? I mean, I knew in the back of my mind what was going on with my family when I was in this phase of life, and I ignored it. I explained it away. I convinced myself that this is the way that it had to be in order to do something successful. I mean, we got to put bread on the table. You know, what my kids want to play sports and go to Disneyland and all of that sort of stuff. And so this is how the way that it has to be. And what's interesting about that, Michael, is that at times, often, my family actually showed up as a hindrance to my performance at work when they had a need or a desire or something. I'm not proud to say that, and I don't say it lightly, but I'm just being very honest, is that pretty soon those things that are so important to us can start to look like a burden rather than something that supports or enriches the other thing.
Yes, even to the point where I worked for a long time with a leader who would go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, scheduled meetings, ad hoc meetings, hallway meetings. So it'd be like 6 hours. He hadn't eaten, hadn't had anything to drink, hadn't been to the restroom, which he needed to do for 4 of those 6 hours.
Yeah.
Because he was always so interested in that next meeting, so got his validation from talking with that next person, helping them solve their problem, that he left his body almost literally on the wayside, fall behind. What was it that tipped the needle for you there, that you went from, is it just the way things are, to all of a sudden, no, this isn't going to work. I can't do this another day.
Yeah. There were a few things. uh, my kids would, at least my older daughter, would cry every time I was leaving because she knew it would, she didn't know when I would be back. I mean, I could tell her, but a 4-year-old mind and understanding all of that felt like forever for me to be home in 5, 6, 7 days. So that became increasingly hard to do. Um, we were it hadn't got to the point where we were missing deadlines and stuff like that in the sense of my leadership, but I could see that road. One of my gifts is that I'm really good at projecting the road that we're on. And I could see that the road that we were on in the way that we were leading the business was not going to be good. If we kept taking these contracts and having the same issues we were having with our team, we were going to find ourselves in a really bad situation. And finally, just feeling like, and lastly, I would say, feeling like I just didn't know my wife anymore. Like we weren't partners, we were roommates, acquaintances. When we were together, it was to-do lists and logistics and, all of that sort of stuff. We weren't dating. We weren't taking opportunities to just connect. And I was really missing that. I was starving for it. I didn't recognize that right at first, but then as I started thinking about it, when you're on the road, you have so much time to think. And, on airplane rides, sitting at airports and all of that sort of stuff. And I think at one moment I thought, wow, this isn't how I imagined my marriage to be. And I think that was like opening the Pandora's box of like, okay, what's going on here? Why are we willing to sacrifice that for the business? So it was a lot of things.
What was it that made it that 101st time your daughter cried when you left? That 101st time that you realized every time you're talking with your wife, it was just logistics and not love. That the 101st time that you looked forward and said, oh, this isn't sustainable. This isn't going to be sustainable for much longer. What was it that 101st time that made it the time that made you switch?
I'm a very decisive person. I don't, once I recognize, or once I'm pretty sure that's the decision that I'm going to make, I don't waste any time. I don't waste a lot of time thinking about it or planning it out. Sometimes that's to my benefit. It's certainly been to my benefit in times. Starting that business, that was to my benefit. As soon as I saw the opportunity, boom, I was on it. And so when I realize something isn't working or I want something new, I just decide and I go after it. A lot of times when I tell this story, me and my business partner, when we made the realization, we put 6 months on it. Literally, we put it on the calendar. If we don't have this figured out, or we don't see light at the end of the tunnel of figuring this out in the end of the next 6 months, we'll hang closed on the door and we will walk away. And I've just always been a decisive person in that way. When I see what I want, I go get it. And so it was just the natural next step for me. Once I saw the light, once I saw the lie, right, that my coach Adrian showed me, once I saw that, it wasn't even a choice at that point. It was like, okay, this is what has to happen.
What was it that crystallized all that into focus for you? That all these feelings that had been sort of in the background, shifting around, suddenly crystallized. You're like, oh, there's a decision to make, and this is what I'm going to make.
Yeah. It was future pacing. Like I talked about, seeing that road that it was going down. I was headed toward divorce. I was headed towards a terrible relationship with my kids. I was headed towards more overwhelm, all of that sort of stuff. So as I future pace those decisions, I realized that wasn't the future I was interested in. And so a course needed to be changed. And so to crystallize it, or to actually bring it to the now, which I realized is every decision I make today has a future. Every decision I make today has a future. So if I make my decisions based on the future that I want, then I can actually create that. But if I make the decisions based on what's most urgent now, or who's the loudest, or what you talked about validation earlier, and I think this is a really important point for me to get into this conversation, which is I also came to the realization that all of what I was doing wasn't for my family, it was for my ego. When I was at work, I'm really good at what I do, and people would recognize me for that. And we started speaking from stages at industry conferences, and after, when we would deliver a product, they were over the moon about it. And so all of that validation and ego food was what I was after. And so realizing that I was making the decisions based off of that short-term instant gratification of feeling really good about myself was what was leading us down that road. So I could take it to in that context, I could take it to the now and say, if you make this next decision based on what your ego wants, you're going to continue to have the future that you have. You're going to continue to have more of what you have now. But if you make a different decision, a different metric which to measure your decisions off of, you can change it.
So was it that for a while, maybe a long time, some parts of you were saying, hey, Chad, this is not working so well. And your ego was so excited about all the validation it was getting that it persuaded you to just ignore those voices. And as you projected forward, that drop dead point where your wife and family and all the things that you really said you were there for would disappear, we're still a little bit out of focus. And then all of a sudden there was one day where those voices got loud enough that they were competing, if not yet overwhelming, your ego. And at the same time, the distance at which you were focusing, you were now looking over that cliff where everything you cared about fell away.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're both always present. Meaning, it's not like I stand in this call with you today, Michael, and like, oh yeah, I don't have any temptations to follow my ego desires now. I've got it made. I've got it figured out. I know. No, that's not it at all. And in fact, I'm consistently paying attention. I'm consistently sometimes not paying attention and reminded by my wife, hey, what are we focusing on right now? Well, where are you making this decision from? But it was me. I mean, we opened that conversation through this experience. She now has the uh, the right and the courage to speak in and say, I don't know that you're making the right decision for what you say we want and what we say we want together. And that's been incredible. But they're always both present, and it's consistently a decision to be made.
Yes, there's always our full counsel, heart, mind, body, spirit, ego, other sources of influence and guidance that we have. And they're always there offering to help us. And sometimes we can see, hear, perceive all of them more or less equally, or at least actually acknowledge each of them. At other times, one or more of them are harder to connect with or are overwhelming the others. And it's just like,
Yeah.
over the course of a day, you're going to get hungry, you're going to get tired, kind of get thirsty, and your breathing sometimes will be smooth and easy and deep and full. Other times it'll be short and shallow, and all these other combinations. It's a part of the biorhythm of being human.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And part of that is I really love a lot of the work of Carl Jung, and he talks about the shadow self. And the shadow self, if we resist it, if we try to pretend like it doesn't exist, or we moralize it as bad or wrong or broken, what we resist persists, right? So if I'm constantly fighting against that and making up stories about who I am because I have this inclination to feed the ego, to just go, I mean, I can work, man. I could work I'm not saying I wouldn't burn out, but I could work long hours, lots of projects. It's just part of me. I can do it. And if I resist that, if I tell myself, if the internal dialogue is that I'm wrong, bad, or broken because of that desire or because of that inclination, if I resist that, it will persist and it will actually get stronger and I'll feel more torn. And Carl Jung talks about embracing the shadow self. It is part of you. It informs your experience. You don't have to make decisions from it, but you do need to love it in order for it to not control the way that you show up day to day. And I think about that a lot. And now it's a practice of saying, well, that is part of me. I love that part of me. That can be really beneficial at times, especially on sprints or stretches, or, if I've made the agreement with my family, which I now do, I now practice that all the time, is when there are sprints, when there are moments of something that needs my attention more than what we've agreed upon, I go negotiate it with them. And now I can love my whole self. I can appreciate my whole self rather than living in a resistance against part of myself that I, have caused trouble in the past.
Yeah. Part of my shadow side is my perfection monster, which ruled me for a long time. And
yeah,
as I came to love it more and more, I decided I wanted a way to personify it and a way to exemplify both its terror and the love I have for it now. And then I found this.
I love it.
Which to me is the perfect combination of that. And that it's kind of terrorizing and also adorable and cute and super cuddly. At least to me.
Yeah.
Other people tell me it's the most scary thing ever, and it's the opposite of all those things. Which is also perfect, because what is going to best help me inhabit my true self and find a balance between all those sometimes conflicting parts and sources of guidance is different, at least in part, from what's going to help you do that. It's going to help your wife do that. It's going to help every individual of you and my clients do that. And in some cases, what you need and what I need will be completely opposite.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And the more that we can acknowledge what we need and then accept that if you need something different than what I need, that isn't something that's wrong with me or wrong with you. It's just different things. We need different things. And then spread that out to everyone we interact with. It becomes way easier to have those conversations that you and your wife and your business partner eventually manage to have on. This is what I need to show up and be in this relationship with my true self. Help me understand what you need to do that, and let's find a way that we each get what we need and we can work together.
Hmm. It's such an essential part of leadership. When I think about what I did so wrong in my first few years of leadership on our team, is that I expected everybody to value the same things that I valued. And if they didn't, something's wrong with them. Instead of, taking the time to get to know them as human beings and what it is that's actually important to them, why they are doing this, not why I'm doing this, and then pasting it all over them. And that is certainly uh, one of the reasons that so many of the people that worked for me didn't feel appreciated and didn't feel seen, and ultimately didn't see a future on our team for themselves, because I wanted them to value what I valued. I wanted them to behave the way I behaved. Um, and which ultimately is, as I can look back on it, and it only makes sense, is that if that were true, if everybody did value what I valued and behaved how I behaved, it would be a really terrible company and product offering, because there would be no multiple perspectives, and there would be no interest in working with each other.
Yes. Yes. So now, how are you building these cultures where everyone feels safe and empowered to bring everything that they are into everything that they do and have those conversations about how that doesn't work with each other and how to make that work for everyone?
It's an interesting question. I don't put a lot of attention to safety. Safety is an interesting term, an idea. I don't. It's arguable that we may never be safe. I don't know. I don't know that or not. I know there's emotional safety. I know. I'm interested in leading a team of courage, and the definition that I use for courage is making bold decisions and action even in the face of uncertainty. And uncertainty can feel like not being safe. But when we take courage, we can still step forward. We can still take the action. We can still ask the question. We can still give the feedback, even though what's on the other end might feel safe. And I don't use that as an excuse to not treat people well and to make sure that they know that I care about them. But I use that because I think if we're scaling and we're growing, we're constantly going to be coming up against things that look like threats consistently. We have to, because that's how growth happens. And so I want to focus with both myself and my team, is that we're a group of courageous human beings that support each other. And the other part of that is, if I successfully bleed that into my culture, people, and my team does, they will give me feedback that I don't want to hear sometimes. They'll be willing to do that because we value courage. We value the ability to stand in a commitment with each other, not be swayed by personality or concern for being disliked or any of that sort of stuff. And I've just found that makes for a much more innovative and exciting and um, real experience, rather than trying to manage how everybody feels. And so the first step to that is me being willing to be courageous myself. That's my journey. Is I could encapsulate my journey in one concept, which is I can't lead others well until I'm leading myself well. It's impossible. And so it's as I continue to refine myself, then that comes out of me with my team and with my clients and that calls them into another level of refinement just by me working on myself. That's it. So that means being willing to hear feedback that's hard to hear. That means creating habits that are producing the future that I say I want. That means admitting when I'm wrong. That means uh, so many things.
Yes. This is one reason that I always start with a leader and not the team, because until a leader is leading themselves well, no one else around them is, it's so much more challenging for everyone else around them to lead themselves as well and to help the team lead itself. And I find exactly the same as you said, that no one else has to know this is going on. Even if the leader doesn't tell anyone the work that they're doing, the change that they're making, everyone else is going to up their game as well and start leading themselves a little more, at least also, just from the ripple effect and osmosis and that change infecting everyone else.
I would say they'll either start making the change themselves or they'll get out. Because when you raise the bar, it's really uncomfortable to be on a team, in a company, in a relationship. Like this is I see this a lot too. As I've grown older, and a lot of my peers are starting to have marriages that are 20 years, 25 years. I'll notice that if one partner decides to really up the bar, either that the other partner follows suit and jumps in and gets on board and ups the bar for themselves, or it doesn't work anymore, because it's incredibly uncomfortable to be a part of a relationship where people are leading themselves well, making challenging decisions, taking courage, and just you not. And so when I consult with a leader or a leadership team and they feel like they don't have A players on their team, I just tell them, look, start working on yourself, work on yourself. Like what you were saying, start working on yourself, make the changes that need to be made, lead yourself well. And those who aren't up for the gig will start to filter themselves out, which is no problem. That's natural. That's a natural growth process. But it's always fun for them to watch that happen. And it's always a bit surprising too, that, I'm always surprised, and they're usually surprised by the ones that do actually step up. Once there's meaningful leadership there, the one who looked like a C player or a D player is now showing up like an A player. And you're wondering, where was this person the whole time? And in reality, the invitation just wasn't there.
And the people who leave because they no longer fit, it's not necessarily that they're not also leveling themselves up. It's that their level up becomes not a good fit with your leveling up. It's like if we all go through, if the team has been eating just mush. This is what the team does. They eat mush, and then all of a sudden the leader realizes, oh my gosh, I just really love Italian food. And so then Italian food and foods kind of along that spectrum start being brought into the team all the time. Some people just aren't going to go for Italian food. Now, they may also be realizing, mush isn't the most nourishing for me either. I love Japanese food or seafood, or I just really love mush. That's really what nourishes me the best. And so they can all go find other communities that love seafood or mush or whatever is nourishing to them. And so they're leveling up because now they're doing this more consciously and intentionally. It just doesn't match the direction that you're now going.
That's right. As you say that, I would totally agree. In fact, them choosing to leave and find something new is actually an indication of leveling up for them, right? At least that's the way that I see it, because um, there's this opportunity for them to like realize, oh, this isn't where I want to be. That's why I always coach the leaders that I'm working with. I always coach them, hey, we celebrate people leaving. If they're leaving for the, if it, not if that's like because it's toxic and, all of that sort of stuff, but if those who just decide this journey is not the right journey for them, we celebrate that. That means two things. They're going to find the journey that is right for them, and you're going to have somebody in that's going to take their place that this is the journey they want.
Yes.
And so I love that transformation, that shift for leaders has always been a really powerful one in my work with them, because now they can celebrate the natural movement of a team.
Yes. And that leveling up doesn't have to mean I'm 100% behind what the direction you're going, or I'm 100% not behind the direction you're going and I'm going to go somewhere else. It might also be direction you're going is fine. It doesn't really give me sparkles and rainbows, and it doesn't really drag me down either. It's a neutral thing for me. And so I'm happy to continue going this direction. If we're all eating Italian food all the time, that's fine. I don't mind it. And so while, again, it's the intentionality and the consciousness of that choice that to me indicates the leveling up, not the direction that someone is going and how that aligns or with the direction that I'm going.
Yeah.
I see how this is all great for each of the leader and all the individuals on the team. How does this help create value for the business?
Oh man, that's a big question. Well, the the business benefits most from my perspective when everybody wants to be in it and wants to row in the same direction. I've seen plenty of businesses where they're scattered. They're rowing different directions. They're not, a good percentage of the team doesn't know if this is where they want to be. They don't know if they have a future in it. They're not loving the product, or any millions of things could be the reason why they're not in it fully. And it's always detrimental to the business. It's always a cost. There's a cost, time and monetarily. In all of those situations, I can say the business was suffering in some way or another because people weren't there because they wanted to be there. They were there because it was a paycheck until something better came along, or they were feeling distrust in their team or with their leadership, or whatever. I mean, I don't see any way that it doesn't affect the efficacy of the business in the marketplace. In fact, I think it's probably the primary indicator or driver for success in the marketplace. Like, when we talked about personal life and business, you can't separate the two. You can't separate, here's our business over here and here's our people. That's just, take away the people, there is no business. So what the people are doing and how they're relating to the work that they're doing is going to determine the success of the business. And so I can't, I'm honestly sitting here trying to think of a way it doesn't impact the success of the business.
How do you help people find their way through all the change, uncertainty, and overwhelm that seems to be everything these days?
This comes back, not to be repetitive, but I think it's worth coming back to. This is the building a culture of courage is what I really aim at, both for myself and with my clients. There's not the uncertainties today are different than a year ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. But it's not like there wasn't uncertainties then. Uncertainty is a feature, not a bug of this experience. And so I don't put a lot of attention and credence on like if there's uncertainty or the uncertainties that we have today are uniquely challenging or anything. Like I don't fall into that camp. I just say uncertainty is the game. That's what we're here to play. You can't escape it, by the way. You can pretend like you're escaping it, but you can't escape it. And so really the question is, how do you want to play the game of uncertainty? Do you want to play it scared? Do you want to play it timid? Those are fine. I'm not naming those as like bad, but those will produce a certain product and a certain output. Or do you want to play it courageous? Do you want to play it curious? Do you want to play it lightheartedly? And that I think I know for me personally, that was one of the biggest shifts that I made in the process of my leadership journey and coaching and still making, is that even in the trials, even in the uncertainties, I can do it playfully. I can have fun with it. There's a practice that I invite my clients into, and the name of the practice is for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life. Because one of the traps that we as humans fall into, that I've observed, that I fall into, is pretending that as soon as I solve this problem, everything's going to be okay. As soon as we hit this revenue hurdle, as soon as we hire this C-suite member, as soon, you name it, I've heard it in my work. As soon as we do this, everything's going to just really be great and gravy. And I just say, you know what? You're going to be solving, as long as you want to continue to engage in this thing, you're going to be solving challenges for the rest of your life. You'll be dealing with uncertainty for the rest of your life. And if you can actually internalize that, like, oh, this is the game we're playing. It's like Simon Sinek, the infinite game. The purpose of the game, the purpose of playing the game is to continue to play the game. And how do you want to play it? Because it's not going anywhere. And so to me, it's not about the uncertainties. It's like, how do you want to play? How do you want to show up? And you can choose. I believe you could choose that. I mean, we each have our own personalities and our challenges in those personalities. And sure, we're unique and our needs. You started the conversation by talking about different needs that people have. And that's true. And there's an invitation for us to play this thing the way that we want to play it.
I like that. It's transforming our fears, our roadblocks, the things that are worrying us from a thing that I must get past, or I'm no good. And then once I'm past it, everything is unicorns and rainbows, into part of the landscape. It's like is I can get past, I can get past this particular tree and the next particular tree and the next particular tree. There's always going to be trees. Even when I'm in the middle of the Sahara
Yeah.
Desert, there's a tree to get past at some point. And if I can
I,
turn
I,
it, go ahead.
Go ahead.
If I can turn it from, I just have to get past all the trees to, there's just always trees. Let me find a way to make peace with there always being trees. Maybe there's a way to enjoy it or play games with them or approach them courageously or timidly or however I want to be in the world. So you say it's all good. There's no better or worse here. Then I can stop focusing on, man, another tree to, hey, there's another tree, another rock, another stone, another cloud. And it's just, there's all these things that I can start playing with and interacting with creatively and enjoying the process rather than fearing it.
Yeah. You mentioned in my bio, you mentioned my love for the outdoors. And this is an analogy that I use a lot because it's a really great analogy. I love to hike. My wife and I love to hike. And we have always taken our children hiking from the time they were ankle biters to now we still go hiking together. And it's interesting, especially as a parent, to observe how different people take in the experience and play the experience of hiking. Because if you think about hiking, it's kind of silly because what you're doing is just putting challenge after challenge in front of yourself, right? It's like this steep hill, this rock face you got to scale, this river you got to cross, this tree stump you got to get over, this final ascent to the peak you've got to, and for some reason, for people who choose it, it's incredibly enjoyable. And then for other people, it's their worst nightmare because it just looks like challenge after challenge after challenge. And why the hell am I doing this? Doesn't make any sense. And the difference from my perspective, the difference is the way you relate to it. Because I can go on a hike, I can go on a 18-mile hike that does some amount of elevation, and the whole time, each challenge that I'm faced with, I can go, and this is what I usually do is like, oh my gosh, look how fun this is. We've got to figure out how to cross this river. Oh my gosh, look how fun this is. We got to figure out how to get over this tree that fell from last season that wasn't here before, you know? And I think it's the same thing. It's like, if we're going through life and business, getting hit by every challenge and thinking that once we get over that challenge, then it will just be smooth sailing, you're going to just live a life of contention and resistance to your business and the people in your business. And, and there's an opportunity, I think, for anybody to change the way they relate to it and find joy in the next challenge.
For people who the next challenge is, they want to contact you and learn more about your approach to helping them lead with courage and find joy in their next challenge, what's the best way for them to contact you?
A great place is LinkedIn. Send me a message on LinkedIn, connect with me there. You can also go to my website, founder-freedom.com. Both of those are great places to reach out to me, or reach out to me directly. chad@chadlbrown.com is a great way too. That's my email.
Great. And I'll have those links in our show notes. And on your website, you have a masterclass for people.
I do, yeah. It's a How to Scale Your Business masterclass. It's an introduction to the work that I do with mostly creative business owners, meaning filmmakers, photographers, but the principles that are taught in the masterclass are absolutely applicable to anybody looking to scale. And it's really around scale strategy. So I offer that for free on my website. I think you could also link to that as well directly, so people could go grab that free gift for your listeners, but it's short, it's to the point, and it's a lot of years of my experience of figuring out what does it take to scale a business in a way that's both meaningful and that you can create the life that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll have that link in the notes as well. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What would you like to leave our audience with today?
As I reflect on the conversation, the most meaningful thing that is, I don't know about the most meaningful thing. A very meaningful thing for me in my life has been to realize that I'm in this for the long haul. Life in general is a journey, an opportunity for me to learn and to discover new things about myself, overcome challenges. And I think the principle of practice has been one of the most transformative perspectives for me, is that I'm practicing and I'll be practicing for the rest of my life. It's something that I love about the medical field or the mental health field, is that they call their careers a practice. My wife's also a yoga instructor, and they call that, even if you've been doing it for 30 years, it's a practice. Because practice is a process of attempting, discovering, and refining. And so leadership isn't something that happens. It's something we practice, and there's always something new to learn, refine, and apply. And that has been the most meaningful framework for me in business, in leadership, and in relationship.
I love it. Thank you for that. And thank you, Chad, for being with us today. This has been a lovely conversation.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, audience, for joining us today. Chad and I would love to know, what are you practicing today? Thanks, and have a great day.